It was a time of religious upheaval and civil strife. Looking to the future continental landscape, this age set the stage for what happened later. Catholics were catapulted by Protestants, and dynastic struggles were in the middle of it all. The defenestration of Prague, this time on the Western tradition.
And now, Aiden Menchaca and Max Efros' continuing journey through the history of the West.
Last time we discussed the religious questioning of the Middle Ages and then looked at the Reformation. Now, this was not a time of peace and placidity. No. After the Catholic doctrine was repudiated in Luther's 95 Theses, the Catholics and the Protestants had no interest in ceding ground. This was an era of great conflict, and it is best to look at the biggest of them all, the 30 Years' War, and moreover, what started it, the defenestration of Prague. The defenestration occurred in Bohemia, a particularly fundamental place to historical religious conflict. There, 2 centuries earlier, the Hussites of Jan Hus were putting together the pieces for Protestantism. They did not move outside the Catholic doctrine, but they framed Catholicism in a new way. They critiqued the splendor of the Church, emphasized the Bible, and had their own debates on communion. Geographically and demographically, too, Bohemia was a ripe subject for conflict. Looking at a map, as historians often like to do, you can see that it is not quite Eastern European, but it is certainly not German. Plus, they felt like they were foreign in the empire, which they were. Governed by a Habsburg king, they did not share the same language or the same customs. So add this into the mix and you get a pretty tense area in Europe. Balkanization, before the term even existed. As time progressed, it seems the religious conflict and tension only continued to grow. After a few decades of relative peace under Rudolf II, in 1618, Ferdinand, the King of Bohemia, decided to revoke the freedoms of the Protestants. And this was the singular event that erupted it all. On May 22nd, 1618, the imperial governors Wilhelm Zvlata and Jaroslav Borzitsa were ejected from the window of Prague Castle along with their scribe Philip Fabricius. As dirty a move from the Protestants it shortly became dirtier for the Catholics. Falling 30 feet, they were saved by a pile of dry manure. To the Catholics, this meant a vindication. The men had lived by the grace of the Catholic God who knew the truth in their religion. To the Protestants, this was the stuff of jesters. Pamphleteers joked at the stuff of the trio survival. Looking back on it now, maybe we view it with the inconsequence that comes with its almost humorous oddity. But this was no accident. Acting with the intent of revolting against King Ferdinand of Bohemia, the Protestants started a long conflict, and they followed up the defenestration by deposing Ferdinand and replacing him with Frederick V of the Palatine. To counter this, newly Emperor Ferdinand II of the Holy Roman Empire sent Spanish troops into Bohemia along with other German forces. By 1622, Ferdinand had subdued Bohemia, but this conflict continued elsewhere, as we will discuss in our next program. Now, normally we like to end it here on the Cameron tradition in that precise manner, but today we are doing something different, a little bit farther along than just the lecture format, and today we are presenting the Professor Emeritus from MSU of History, Max Efros, who will be giving his interpretation on the 30 Years' War and the defenestration of Prague. Welcome, Mr. Efros.
Yes, thank you, sir. It's great to be here. Now, anyways,
This act of defiance against the ruling Catholic government signified the beginning of a long conflict that would envelop almost all of Europe. Countries picked sides and prepared for a total war for the first time in modern European history. Civilians played a new role in warfare, and the fighting was so catastrophic and destructive that the literal rules of war were rewritten to make combat more orderly and chivalrous. At the end of the 30 Years' War, a new European power was crowned as France overtook the Habsburg Empire as the dominant power on the continent.